Hello again, and it's a little awkward, isn't it? It's been slightly over, I think, a year since I made my last video on YouTube, and a lot's happened since then. My absence from YouTube, it wasn't planned, or at least to the extent I've been absent. Last February, I did think there would be at least some kind of minor disruption to my video making capacities, but thought that at least I'd be back around autumn season, September. But time passes, and here we are. So if there's anyone out there that's still interested, where I've been, really it was just kind of life happening. Nothing too exciting. I just sort of found myself, due to just various life circumstances, having way less time to make videos or having any spare time at all. But now I've sort of rectified that to an extent, and I'm in a position where I can kind of tentatively start to make videos again, and hopefully without any kind of just abrupt, kind of unplanned stopping this time. But also sort of upon reflection, I was kind of like recently just musing to myself whilst I was in the bath, and you kind of get into a kind of a sort of somnambulistic state, almost meditative. It occurred to me that that just things, like whatever happens, just events in life, things that happen in life that occur just aren't just kind of circumstantial. Life isn't just happenstance and stuff happening to you. I mean, momentum just sort of occurs, but there are other reasons for not just like my own personal quietude over the last year, but I think on a broader scale, almost kind of society-wide, this kind of odd sort of this blanket that seems to have just engulfed not just the UK, but the entirety of the West. Fortunately, I've kind of worked myself now just steadily over the years, where I've got now more time on my hands, and I've sort of recently kind of delved back on YouTube and social media and noticed just some subtle changes. One thing I've noticed is that there seems to be a lot more sort of kind of introspective, kind of like navel gazing, like self-reflective videos, like featuring sort of like atomized individuals talking about sort of just being atomized. It's like more people are discovering that our matrix that we live in, it has walls, and they're kind of feeling the edges for the first time when they're in the dark, and they kind of suddenly feel confined and trapped, alone, alienated, and isolated from the society, from the world around them, from their friends, from their family, the system, or the people just generally. And there's almost like an encroaching sense that other people are almost kind of indefinably more opaque and unreadable, or inscrutable rather, and that there's no kind of common bond anymore between people. It's not just a kind of economic disenfranchisement, but almost like a sense of a kind of spiritual and cultural malaise that's dawning on more and more people. And it seems very much like the bonds that held us together are sort of kind of frayed, and decayed to a point where kind of almost like the eternal normies kind of woken up and started to notice almost. I mean, politically, just take into account politically the past year, all the rabble-rousing and protests, and just all the England flags everywhere, like on every lamppost. It's almost at once upliftingly sort of patriotic, but on the other hand, they're almost kind of comic in their just seeming ubiquitousness. I drive to work, and it's almost like, just your everyday average street. It's almost like the Mall in places. You're driving towards bloody Buckingham Palace. There's just lamps festooned with flags, just in seemingly sort of like innocuous places, which is kind of funny. But I don't mind it, certainly. It's just kind of amusing. Um, but meanwhile, against this kind of, this noisy backdrop amongst just everyday, just normal people sort of waking up, I find myself just kind of in stark contrast, like almost feeling the opposite. Um, where it almost feels like I'm kind of like in a weird sense of like I'm asleep. Like, I mean, in the past, I mean, probably the past decade or so, I mean, I've been as awake as it's possible to be. Like, for years, I've been kind of politically astute as to all the kind of the kind of underlying kind of surreptitious currents that are kind of going on in the world, and the internet's been a kind of a sort of a woke medium for that, where you can start to see things underneath the kind of mainstream media narrative drive. But I don't know. It's like past year I've been almost in that sort of a kind of weird daze, and not to say kind of dazed in a kind of addled, sort of befuddled, inebriated way. But I mean, just in everyday life, I've been like career-wise, on a sort of like I'm doing okay. Things are on a kind of vaguely upward trajectory. Things are going fine. Materially, I'm doing okay. Well, touch wood. I mean, nothing lasts forever, right? I mean, what with the job market being as it is in the UK. But spiritually, not deadened, but almost kind of in a kind of torpor, and it's in stark reflection to the kind of state I was in last year when I was making videos, when I was I had all this kind of pregnant, sort of desperate urge to express myself, making videos on YouTube. I kind of was in this sort of like possessed, kind of exhibitionist, fevered state. And I think it's almost because this sense of sleepiness, this kind of drowsiness, spiritually, it's as simple as you can only be almost like awake for so long. Eventually, you just kind of simply need to sleep. I found myself just kind of getting on just with sort of normie life, like taking a break from, the abyss of the internet, as it were. It's just kind of funny when everyone outside have been asleep for so long and now starting to get radicalized, and I'm now seemingly the one that's sort of devolving in sort of like bloomer, like normiedom, just kind of floating through life. And kind of thinking a bit more about it, I almost feel like, not dead, but kind of like, in a sense, a bit elevated, like not stoic or kind of pessimistic, melancholic, whatever, just kind of a bit apart, they say kind of like floating. And I don't know if that means I'm like just riding, like riding the tiger now, and I've just left this mortal plane, surfing the ether for the past year. I don't think it's that, but maybe it is at least partially because, I mean, well, I'm bodily still here, right? But I don't suffer. I don't cope with just the decay of everyday life around me. I'm not politically engaged. I just sort of like am, just kind of living life, and it's sort of like playing the game of life. I mean, I'm sort of playing it, but I'm not playing it at the same time. It's like almost like I'm in a kind of quantum flux state, here, but not here at all. Just realised that might sound a bit like Patrick Bateman, like a bit American Psycho, but I don't know. It's a weird sort of state to be in. I think maybe at a deeper level, metaphysically, it may be that kind of having projected myself externally onto the kind of digital, electronic plane of the internet, while simultaneously doing it in a kind of like fracturing hyperreal world, this kind of alchemical, sort of projection, it's resulted in a kind of like a weird cosmic like transplantation effect where I become a bit detached from myself. Like the camera captures a piece of your soul, And I've kind of last year instinctively recalled from that. Although maybe that's just intellectualizing it too much. I'm just like a lazy bastard. And, you know, it's probably just that, really. In any case, I seem to have found myself again. I've got renewed vigour. I'm a bit older and hopefully a little bit wiser. It's almost like the scene from The Two Towers where Aragorn's looking for clues. You know, that scene where he's looking for clues amongst the kind of the pile of steaming orcish bodies, you know, for clues to the whereabouts of Merry and Pippin who've been snatched. And that's kind of like how I feel. Like I'm just starting to kind of sift through the detritus and kind of like foraging and looking for pieces of interest, import, you know, like flotsam amongst the jetsam. And it's like pieces of a puzzle, and kind of just picking up where I left off last year and see where it leads me. But well, that said, I feel good. I feel refreshed, awake, which is good. But just like being awake for too long, you can also be, I think, asleep for too long. I think last year I was, but like Smorg, I start to feel myself kind of starting to wake up from my year-long slumber. And now, with a year of dreams behind me, surrounding me, but now awake, hopefully with a somewhat magic ability to project these dreams forward and onto the world via the internet and pick up where I left off last February. So that's the plan. Lock away all your loved ones. I'm out on the prowl again, and we back, as the Zoomers say. So I reckon at least a video a week, even if it kills me, is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to stick to this, and I'm going to keep looking for the truth as much as I can. And we'll see where we go. So I'll see you in the next one.